He passed notes to his attorneys with increasing frequency, his expressions cycling between concern and what courtroom. Observers described as growing alarm. The relationship between Diddy and Meek Mill had been peripherally relevant to the case. From its early stages, prosecution had previously introduced evidence of financial transactions between Combs, businesses and entities connected to the Philadelphia rapper, characterizing them as part of a larger pattern of suspicious money movement. Defense had consistently maintained these were legitimate business dealings between music industry colleagues with overlapping professional interests. Both men had submitted sworn statements describing their relationship as primarily professional, with occasional social interaction. Diddy had specifically testified during grand jury proceedings that he had never conducted private business meetings with Mill without others present, characterizing their connection as industry standard artist. Executive Relations, who was not a defendant in the case, but had been identified as a potential witness, had provided a sworn affidavit supporting this characterization. He stated explicitly that he had never attended private meetings with Mr. Combs in hotel settings and that all their interactions had been standard music industry business conducted in appropriate professional contexts. To view the newly introduced footage, prosecutor Alina Michaels provided context that directly challenged these statements. What you are about to see, she explained, is security footage from the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles, recorded on August 14, 2016. It shows the defendant, Sean Combs, entering a suite at approximately 11:42 p.m., followed 17 minutes later by Robert Williams, known professionally as Meek Mill. The footage then shows various individuals entering and exiting over a 3-hour period, including several who have been identified as relevant to counts 4 and 6 of the indictment. She continued, most significantly at timestamp 217 a.m. The footage captures Mr. Combs and Mr. Williams engaged in a specific interaction that directly contradicts their sworn statements regarding both the nature of their relationship and activities central to the financial transactions outlined in Government Exhibits 23 through 29. As the prosecution prepared to play the video, the defense made one final attempt to delay, requesting the jury be temporarily dismissed while they argued additional objections. Judge Delaney denied this request, stating that any issues with the evidence could be addressed through proper cross-examination. After its presentation, court officers verified all monitors were functioning properly. Silence, and with a nod from Judge Delaney, Prosecutor Michaels instructed the technical staff to begin playback of what would prove to be the most consequential evidence introduced thus far in the high-profile case. The government presents evidence item 47C, announced Prosecutor Alina Michaels as the courtroom. Monitors displayed the FBI evidence designation screen hotel security footage for Seasons Los Angeles, August 14, 2016, covering the period from 11:30 p.m. to 3:45 a.m. The video began playing, showing a standard hotel corridor with several suite doors visible. A timestamp in the corner read 11:42 p.m. The footage quality was remarkably clear for security videos, significantly better than the grainy, indistinct images often presented in court proceedings. Sean Diddy Combs appeared in the frame, accompanied by two individuals previously identified in court documents as members of his security team. One of the security personnel checked the corridor in both directions before Diddy entered suite 1432. The security members remained outside, taking positions that suggested they were monitoring access to the room. At timestamp 11:59 p.m., Meek Mill appeared in the corridor alone. He approached the suite, spoke briefly with the security personnel, and was admitted. The video continued, showing several individuals arriving over the next hour, some remaining for only brief periods by security before entry. The most significant segment began at timestamp to 14 a.m. The security personnel temporarily left their positions, moving down the corridor, apparently responding to something off camera. During this brief window, the suite door opened and Diddy and Meek Mill emerged, engaged in what appeared to be an Intense conversation, though the security footage didn't include audio. The body language between the two men was unmistakably tense. Diddy gestured emphatically while speaking, occasionally pointing directly at Mill, who primarily listened with his arms crossed. At one point, Diddy placed a hand on Mill's shoulder in what appeared to be a firm grip rather than a friendly gesture. At what happened next caused the first audible reactions in the courtroom. Diddy removed an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Mill. Mill opened it briefly, examining the contents before nodding and placing it inside his own jacket. The two men then engaged in what appeared to be a more relaxed conversation before returning to the suite. As this segment played, Prosecutor Michaels paused the video. The government will establish through financial records and subsequent witness testimony that the contents of this envelope directly relate to transactions detailed in Count 6 of the indictment, specifically the initiation of a series of international transfers designed to conceal the origin and destination of funds connected to the enterprise described in the RICO charges. She resumed the video, advancing to timestamp 3:17 a.m. The footage showed Meek Mill exiting the suite alone. His demeanor appeared significantly different, more subdued and hurried. Security personnel, who had returned to their positions at 3:42 a.m., the final segment showed Diddy leaving with his security team and 3 additional individuals, whose faces were temporarily obscured by the prosecution pending their formal identification. In court, before the group left the frame, Diddy stopped and appeared to speak directly to a wall-mounted security camera, the same camera recording the footage being viewed. He pointed directly at it, then made a slashing gesture across his throat. As the video concluded, the courtroom erupted into murmurs and exclamations. Judge Delaney immediately called for order, his gavel striking sharply several times before quiet was restored. The jury will disregard any reactions from the gallery, he instructed firmly. You are to consider only the evidence presented, not how others may respond to it. Diddy's reaction to the footage was visible to everyone in the courtroom. His previous composed demeanor had completely dissolved. He sat hunched forward, hand covering his mouth, engaged in urgent, whispered consultation with his legal team. One attorney appeared to be trying to calm him, while another frantically made notes. Prosecutor Michaels approached the bench. Your Honor, the government would like to enter into evidence additional materials that directly connect what was just observed. 2 financial records previously introduced as government exhibits 23 through 29. Objection, Your Honor. The defense has had no opportunity to examine this footage properly, verify its authenticity, or prepare appropriate responses. We request an immediate recess to consult with our client and examine this alleged evidence. Judge Delaney considered briefly before responding. The court will grant a 2-hour recess for the defense to review this evidence. However, I am denying any motion to exclude it. At this time, the prosecution appears to have established sufficient dispute through Agent Rizzo's testimony regarding forensic verification. As the judge announced the recess, the courtroom remained charged with tension. Legal analysts present immediately recognized the potential significance of what they had witnessed, not just evidence that contradicted sworn statements potentially exposing both Diddy and Meek Mill to perjury charges, but concrete visual documentation connecting the defendant directly to alleged financial crimes that had previously been established only through complex paper trails and testimony. The footage had transformed abstract allegations with their own eyes, development that experienced court observers noted could fundamentally alter how the jury perceived both the defendant and the broader case against him. When court reconvened after the 2-hour recess, the atmosphere had transformed. Defense attorneys appeared visibly strained, having clearly spent the break in intense consultation with their client and likely reaching out to Meek Mill's representatives. Diddy himself had abandoned the confident posture maintained throughout previous proceedings. Now sitting with shoulders hunched and gaze frequently lowered, Judge Delaney addressed both legal teams. I understand the defense has filed an emergency motion Regarding the newly introduced evidence, we'll address that briefly before continuing with testimony. Defense Attorney Harrington. Rose, Your Honor, we maintain our objection to this evidence on multiple grounds. While we continue to question its authenticity, despite the prosecution's claims of verification, our primary concern is context. This brief video segment presented without proper background or explanation creates a fundamentally misleading impression about a legitimate business interaction between music industry colleagues. Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom account from Sean Diddy Combs' trial as reported by authorized legal correspondents. If you want to stay informed about this developing story that has dramatically altered the trajectory of this high-profile case, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for continuous updates as this situation unfolds. The Southern District of New York Federal Courthouse witnessed an unprecedented scene today when previously undisclosed security footage showing an interaction between Sean Diddy Combs and rapper Meek Mill was unexpectedly introduced into evidence. The video reportedly captured at the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles in 2016 was presented during what was scheduled to be a routine evidentiary hearing in the ongoing case against the music mogul. As the footage played on Courtroom monitors, the composed procedural atmosphere dissolved into chaos. Multiple attendees audibly gasped to jurors visibly recoiled. Judge Raymond Delaney, known for his strict courtroom decorum, appeared momentarily stunned before calling for immediate order. Diddy, who had maintained a stoic demeanor throughout previous proceedings, physically slumped in his chair, his legal team frantically passing notes as the implications of this new evidence became clear. The footage, which prosecutors described as unequivocally authentic and unaltered, appears to contradict sworn statements previously submitted by both Combs and Mill regarding the nature of their professional relationship and specific events relevant to the case. More significantly, according to legal analysts present in the courtroom, it potentially establishes a direct connection between Combs and activities central to the most serious charges he currently faces. What makes this development particularly consequential isn't merely the content of the footage itself, but its provenance. The video was reportedly provided to federal investigators by an anonymous source within the hotel's security team who had maintained a personal copy. Despite alleged attempts to have all records of the interaction removed from official systems shortly after it occurred. This isn't simply another sensational moment in an already high-profile trial. It represents a potential turning point in the prosecution's case, introducing concrete visual evidence where previously they had relied primarily on testimony that defense attorneys had worked systematically to discredit. The full story begins with how this footage remained hidden for years, what exactly it reveals about Clayze, about the relationship between these prominent industry figures, and why its sudden emergence in court today may have irreversibly altered the outcome of one of the most closely watched criminal cases in recent entertainment history. The atmosphere in Courtroom 14B of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse had settled into the methodical rhythm typical of complex federal cases. By their third week, the initial media frenzy had subsided into more focused coverage, with a consistent group of legal correspondents occupying the designated press section. Security procedures had become routine, and even the arrival of high-profile defendant Sean Diddy Combs no longer created the stir it had during early proceedings. This Wednesday morning began with the standard protocol. Judge Raymond Delaney, a 64-year-old veteran jurist known for his methodical approach and intolerance for procedural deviations, entered precisely at 9:00 a.m. The 12 jurors and 4 alternates took their seats, notebooks ready. Prosecution and defense teams arranged their materials with practiced efficiency at their respective tables. Diddy arrived wearing a tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and subdued tie, their carefully constructed image of business respectability replaced his flamboyant public persona since the indictment. He acknowledged his legal team with a brief nod before taking his seat, his expression revealing nothing of the internal pressure he surely felt as the defendant in a case that could potentially result in decades of imprisonment. Lead prosecutor Alina Michaels, a seasoned federal attorney with a reputation for meticulous preparation, had indicated the previous day that this session would focus on establishing the timeline of specific events alleged in counts 3 through 7 of the indictment. The proceedings were expected to be technically focused, but relatively methodical building of the government's case through financial records, communication logs, and witness corroboration. Your Honor, the government calls Special Agent Thomas Rizzo Michaels announced beginning what the assembled observers anticipated would be another day of incremental case building. Rizzo, a digital forensics specialist with the FBI's Financial Crimes Section, took the stand and was sworn in. After establishing his credentials and expertise, Michaels led him through prepared questions about data recovery methods and chain of custody procedures, foundational testimony to authenticate evidence that would follow. It was approximately 40 minutes into this testimony when Michaels pivoted in a direction that caught the attention of everyone in the courtroom. Agent Rizzo, I'd like to direct your attention to evidence item 47C, which was recently added to the government's exhibit list pursuant to the court's ruling on late discovered evidence. Can you explain how this item came into the possession of federal investigators? Defense counsel immediately objected, citing inadequate notice and procedural concerns. Judge Delaney called both teams to the bench for a sidebar discussion that lasted nearly 15 minutes, with increasingly animated but hushed exchanges between the attorneys. When they returned to their positions, the judge addressed the courtroom. I have reviewed the government's motion regarding this evidence and the defense's objections. While the timing is irregular, the evidence meets the criteria for late discovery under federal rules. The prosecution has established legitimate reasons for its delayed introduction, and the defense will be granted adequate time to examine the evidence and prepare any challenges to its authenticity or relevance. The objection is overruled and we will proceed. This ruling immediately altered the energy in the courtroom. Defense attorneys huddled in urgent consultation. Diddy leaned forward, his previous composure showing the first cracks as he whispered intensely to his lead counsel. Journalists straightened in their seats, suddenly alert to the possibility that routine proceedings had transformed into something potentially significant. Agent Rizzo explained that on April 17th, approximately 3 weeks earlier, the FBI had received an anonymous package containing a USB drive and a handwritten letter. The letter claimed to be from a former security employee of the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles, who stated they had maintained a personal copy of security footage from August 14, 2016. Despite instructions to delete all records of the interaction it captured following standard protocols for anonymous evidence, Rizzo testified. We conducted forensic authentication of the digital content and pursued verification through independent channels. We were able to confirm the footage is genuine security video from the stated location and date. As Michaels requested permission to play the video for the court, the atmosphere tensed further. Judge Delaney instructed court officers to ensure all recording devices were disabled, reminding attendees of the strict prohibitions against creating unauthorized records of evidence presentation. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as monitors positioned for viewing by the judge, jury, attorneys, and defendant displayed the FBI evidence designation screen. What followed would transform not just this day's proceedings, but potentially the entire trajectory of the case. Against one of music's most powerful figures, it started like any other day in the ongoing trial of Sean Diddy Combs. The room buzzed with low conversations as attorneys organized documents and court personnel prepared for the day's proceedings. The case had been methodically advancing through financial evidence, with prosecutors establishing patterns of transactions and communications they alleged constituted racketeering. money laundering, and other federal offenses, but when Special Agent Thomas Rizzo mentioned evidence item 47, the room changed. Defense attorneys who had been reviewing documents suddenly looked up, their postures shifting from routine attention to alert concern. Diddy, who had maintained composed confidence throughout previous sessions, straightened in, his chair leaning toward his legal team with evident urgency. The judge raised an eyebrow at the prosecution's introduction of previously undisclosed evidence, calling an immediate sidebar. The intense discussion at the bench, though conducted in hushed tones, featured unusually animated gestures from both legal teams when they returned to their positions. Judge Dillon's ruling to admit the evidence sent a ripple of anticipation through the courtroom. Died's lead attorney, James Harrington, appeared visibly displeased, making a show of documenting his continuing objection for the record. Your Honor, while we respect the court's ruling, we maintain that introducing evidence of this nature, without adequate time for review, fundamentally disadvantages the defense and potentially prejudices the jury. Judge Delaney acknowledged the objection but remained firm. Your concerns are noted.